Hello. Today we're going to look at solving a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. The key idea that I want you to remember is that when you're solving quadratic equations, that we're looking for the zeros of the equation. So meaning if we were going to graph it, we're looking for where this quadratic crosses the x-axis. That also means if two terms multiplied by each other equals 0, then one of those terms must be 0. In past lessons, we've looked at solving equations by the following: square roots, zero product property, factoring. In this lesson, we're going to look at the quadratic formula. That's what you see here. It can be read as x is equal to the opposite of the b term or the second term, plus or minus the square root of the second term or the b term squared, minus 4 multiplied by the a term multiplied by the c term, all of this divided by 2 times the a term. So we've got an example here. We're asked to solve 3x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Now, the reason I read this first is because this is very important. I left you a note here. To use this formula, make sure that the quadratic equation is in standard form, meaning the x squared term is first, and then the x, and then the constant, and it's also set equal to 0. So this is the standard form, and this is what it always has to look like for us to use the quadratic formula efficiently and properly. So in our example, we have 3x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. A is the 3, B is 4, and C is 1. So I've kind of highlighted them in colors here. I've also taken the time to highlight them in colors where they go. So we took the opposite of the B term, which was positive 4, so now it's negative 4, plus or minus 4 squared, minus 4 times A times C, all of that divided by 2A. So notice out here, negative 1 times 4 gave us negative 4, plus or minus, and then we square the term inside, which is 16, and you multiply everything after the minus sign. Now, there's 2 ways of thinking about this. You could either multiply everything first, 4 times 3 times 1, which is 12, and then multiply by negative 1 to get negative 12. Personally, I think of this as negative 4 times everything else. And the reason for that is sometimes these points will be negative, which will mean that your answer right here would be positive. So for me, it's just easier to think negative 4 times everything else. And then once we get this, we go ahead and do what's under the radical. So 16 minus 12 is 4. Notice I haven't done anything else with this negative 4. And so I end up with negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 6. So I'm just kind of simplifying as I go. And here's where the plus and minus come in. You're going to take negative 4 plus the square root of 4 divided by 6 and negative 4 minus the square root of 4 divided by negative 6. Not negative 6, I'm sorry, divided by 6. So our first intercept, or our first solution, or our first root is going to be at negative 4. The square root of 4 is 2. That's where the 2 came from. Divided by 6, which gives us negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. Divided by 6 gives us negative 1/3. So that's where one of the intercepts is. Over here, negative 4 minus the square root of 4 divided by 6. Well, negative 4 minus 2, because 2 is the square root of 4, divided by 6, that gave us negative 6 over 6. And so the other root or solution is at negative 1. Now, we're going to take some time and we're going to do some examples. We're going to start with this example right here. We've got 6y squared minus 3y minus 9 equals 0. Gone ahead and rewritten the quadratic formula, and now we're just going to determine what our a, b, and c are. So a is 6, b is negative 3, and c is negative 9. And we're going to substitute the values of these letters into our formula. So we've got y is equal to the opposite of negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 9. All of that divided by 2 times 6. So now we're just going to simplify. The opposite of negative 3 is 3, plus or minus. Well, negative 3 squared is 9. Now, notice here I've got negative 4 times positive 6 times negative 9. This is going to be a positive result, so I'm going to put plus, and all of that happens to be 216. And then we're going to divide all that by 12. So then we've got y is equal to 3 plus or minus. Well, 9 plus 216 is 225. All of that divided by 12. Then we're going to take the square root of 225, which happens to be 15. Divide that by 12. Now we're going to break up this information here. We're going to do y is equal to, so we're going to find one 0, which is at 3 plus 15 divided by 12. And then we're going to find the other 0 at 3 minus 15 divided by 12. So y is equal to 18 divided by 12. Let's go ahead and simplify that. So the largest number that can go into both of these is 6. So actually y is equal to 3/2. And then here we have y is equal to 3 minus 15 is negative 12 divided by 12. So y is equal to negative 1. I almost said 1. So those would be the two zeros that you have. I can just write this here. Y is equal to 3/2. Let's go ahead and do the next one. Now, if you notice here, when we're determining our a, b, and c, we have a, which is negative 9, but we don't have a b term. And how we know we don't have a b term is there's not a term with just a single variable. So b in this case is going to be 0, and c in this case is going to be 1. Now, there's one thing that you have to know about the quadratic formula. A can never be 0 because you can't divide by 0. That's called undefined. So a will never be 0. So let's go ahead and fill in our information. We've got y is equal to the opposite of our b term plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 9, times c, which is positive 1. All of that divided by 2 times negative 9. So we've got y is equal to 0 plus or minus. Well, the square root of 0 is just 0. And then negative 4 times negative 9 is positive 36 times 1 is positive 36. All of that divided by negative 18. And y is equal to 0 plus or minus the square root of 36 divided by negative 18. Well, the square root of, well, let's do it. Let's keep doing it. 0 plus or minus square root of 36 is 6 divided by negative 18. So we've got y is equal to 0 plus 6 divided by negative 18. And we've got y is equal to 0 minus 6 divided by negative 18. Well, 0 plus 6 is 6. So we've got y is equal to 6 divided by negative 18. And over here we've got y is equal to negative 6 divided by negative 18. So y is equal to negative 1/3 and y is equal to 1/3. All I did was take the greatest common factor of both, which happened to be 6, and divide 6 into the top and to the bottom. That's how I ended up with 1/3. Let's go on over here to the next one. We've got 3t minus 9 equals negative 6t squared. Now remember, I told you that it's very important that your equation be written in standard form. Obviously, this one is not in standard form, so let's go ahead and remedy that. We would remedy that by moving the negative 6t. And in the interest of space, you guys keep seeing that I run out of space. I'm just going to, in my mind, know that I add 6t squared to both sides of the equation. So I've got 6t squared plus 3t minus 9 equals 0. So that's my new equation. Now we know that A is 6, B is 3, and C is negative 9. So we've got, this is not Y, this should be T. T is equal to the opposite of the B term, plus or minus 3 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 9, all of that divided by 2 times 6. So therefore T is equal to negative 3 plus or minus, that's 9, 3 squared is 9, and then we've got again 36 times 6, which is 216. All of that divided by 12. T is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 225 divided by 12. T is equal to negative 3. The square root of 225 is 15 divided by 12. This kind of looks like the first one, doesn't it? We just change it around. Interesting. So T is equal to negative 3 plus 15 divided by 12, and T is also equal to negative 3 minus 15 divided by 12. So T is equal to negative 12 divided by 12, which means T is equal to negative 1. That's one of our zeros. T is equal to negative 18 over 12. Well, we can simplify that by 6, so T is equal to negative 3 over 2. So that's how you complete the quadratic equation, or that's how you use the quadratic formula to find the zeros in a quadratic equation. Go ahead and try that your turn. All right, so here is the process and the answer to the your turns. And it dawned on me that IXL was probably asking for these as decimals, round to the nearest hundredths. So this one would be 0.50. This would be S equals negative 0.50. This one would be S is equal to negative 0.50. Here, it's root 7 over negative 7, which is equivalent to negative 0.377 rounded to negative 0.38. I knew that because the 7 in the thousandths place was higher than 5, so it meant to round up the number in the hundredths place up 1. And same thing here. Now on this one, I left it as an imaginary number. With the inspires, you would be able to calculate these if you needed to. There's inspires in the room. So there you go. See you later.